this is exactly how I want to kick off 2026. It's not every day we come with bad news. It's not every day we come with stories of war. Today, I am happy that the first episode of Frontline Africa is an exciting development right here in Africa. Now, let me get to the crux of the matter. There is this thing that has been happening in Africa ever since President Donald Trump came back to office almost a year ago. Now, everything that we have been hearing about visa bans, imposing bond on travelers, especially from Africa, they are not hiding it. They have always targeted Africans with this their immigration policies. Every administration, especially when it is a right-wing government in the US or anywhere in Europe, they always target Africans with visa restrictions. And Donald Trump, ever since he came to office, he has been pushing this agenda and he has been pushing it aggressively. Now, this is not the first time Africans have been discriminated against in immigration policies across the world. We have not been hearing about it because the media is a blind spot for media to cover in Africa. But this time around, because of the Alliance of Sahel States, we are beginning to bring this kind of topic into the spotlight. Because before now, whenever there is this kind of visa bans, African government, they just ignore it like it didn't happen. They find a way to dance around it and avoid talking about it. And they stomach the ban or any kind of discrimination that is being thrown across Africans. But I am happy that right now, we have the Alliance of Sahel States to actually do something about this kind of discrimination. I'm going to start with the latest move that happened. It involves Mali and Burkina Faso. Now, late 2025, or should I say between December 15 and 16, Donald Trump released his latest list of countries that he released, the proclamation that he made mid-December. It was 2 categories. Now, the first list are countries that is completely banning their citizens from entering the United States. The second list are the people that is partially banning. And the first list happens to include all the countries of the Alliance of Sahel States. I'm talking about Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. According to Donald Trump, these 3 countries, their nationals are no longer welcome into the United States. And it affected students, people that are business people that are going into the US to do actual business. It affected people that are genuinely going for tourism. So he imposed this visa ban on Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Now, yesterday, December 31st, 2025, the government of Mali and Burkina Faso, they decided to do something about it. And this is what they are calling the doctrine of reciprocity. It means that in diplomatic relations or in bilateral relationship between one country and another, whatever this country does to country A, country B have a right to retaliate. In personal relationship, we can call it retaliation. In diplomatic parlance, we like to use the word reciprocity. Now, the government of Burkina Faso, let me read out exactly how they presented their response to this latest visa ban by Donald Trump. According to the foreign minister of Burkina Faso, he declared that the government of Mali had decided to apply equivalent visa measures to the United States nationals in accordance with the principle of reciprocity. The statement by Burkina Faso emphasized commitment to mutual respect, sovereign equality of states, and reciprocity in international relations. Now, they also noted that the decision by the United States is deeply regretted because the government of Donald Trump did not carry any country along, especially the AES countries, when he was making these visa bans. Now, this is how Mali responded to this visa ban by Donald Trump. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Mali announced that effective immediately, the government would impose the same conditions and requirements to US nationals as those imposed on Malian citizens. Now, Malian government also expressed regret that such an important decision is being made by Donald Trump without carrying the government of Mali along. Now you might say there are three governments in the AES and Mali and Burkina Faso have taken action. Let me shock you. Niger fired the first shot because when Donald Trump made this announcement, they immediately imposed a total visa ban on every US nationals that are coming into Niger Republic. So what is this saying about what is currently going on in Africa right now? Before now, how dare you as an African country to reciprocate to whatever punitive measures any government in the US is imposing on African countries. But recently, we are beginning to see a lot of reciprocity happening on the African continent, which is a good thing. It tells us that things are changing now. We can no longer accept this kind of discriminatory policies from Western countries or the so-called developed countries imposed on the so-called third world countries, aka African countries. But because ultimately, all these visa policies, they might include one or two countries from outside Africa, but majority of all the countries affected, they are African countries. Even John Mahama, in his address a few weeks ago, made it very clear that all these visa policies, all these discriminatory policies that is happening in the US or any right-wing leaning government in Europe, they are specifically targeting African countries. But the good news now is that right now, African countries, especially the AES, they are fighting back. Now, long before the AES countries started fighting back against this kind of policies by the United States, other African countries have been making similar moves. Let me tell you about Chad. Mid-2025, yes, when the first list of countries was released by Donald Trump, total visa ban, Chad was among the countries that got affected. So Chadian President Mahatma Idris Deby announced the suspension. He made the announcement shortly after Donald Trump announced that everyone coming in from Chad is banned from entering the United States. The government of Chad reciprocated immediately, and he announced that every citizen of the United States that is coming into Chad will no longer enter the country. But there is a little difference between what we are seeing right now from the AES compared to what Chad did in June last year. Now, the first announcement Chad made, they said it was a blanket reciprocal ban. Then they later came back and said, you know what? It is no longer a total ban. Every existing visa from US nationals, they are allowed to come into Chad. And they also excluded dual nationals like American Chadians, that they are free to enter Chad. So they watered it down. This is completely different from what we are seeing in the AES. They don't compromise on this reciprocity. Now, let me take you back to October. This is not the first time that Mali is making this kind of move against Donald Trump's visa bans. He imposed what he called visa bonds for people that are coming into the United States from Mali and other countries. So every other country accepted this visa bond without any kind of reciprocity. But Mali imposed their own $10,000 visa bond for every national of the United States that are coming into Mali. Let me shock you. You know what happened next? Donald Trump's government immediately reversed this $10,000 bond for Mali. It shows that reciprocity, it is something that works. This reciprocity from both Mali and Burkina Faso, it was announced yesterday. And based on the precedent that the visa bond between Mali and the United States, based on what we saw, the US reversing their position after Mali slapped them back with their $10,000 visa bond. Maybe this time around, they could think twice about the AES whenever they are trying to ban them from anything or any of these punitive measures. So now, there is an interesting part of this story that I want to also talk about. Namibia. This Madam President is one Madam President that I like a lot. Netumbo Ndaitwah, the first ever female president from Namibia. She is only the second female president in Africa right now. The other lady is from Tanzania. We all know that she's not as nice as Ndaitwah in Namibia. We already saw what she did in Tanzania. A lot of people died for her to remain in power. She banned opposition. I can tell you that this Madam President from Namibia, she's not like that. She's actually a nice president. And the people of Namibia, they love her so much. Now, long before Donald Trump even started rolling out these visa bans and imposing visa bans on African countries, the president of Namibia did what I call a preemptive strike. I call it a preemptive strike because she reviewed the visa policies that her country have with European countries, including the United States. And she found out that Western citizens, like Europeans and Americans, can enter Namibia without visa. But then she saw that Namibians can't enter these countries without visa. It's almost like a one-sided deal that the country of Namibia is making with these Western countries. And then she reviewed it. This happened in 2024. And when she reviewed it, she said that every country that is entering into Namibia that requires Namibians to have a visa before entering their country must henceforth require a visa to enter Namibia. It is the doctrine of reciprocity taken to another level. So this her policy affected a lot of European countries. I'm talking about countries like Germany, countries like United States. Even, yes, it affected every European country that demands visa from Namibians to enter their country. So that was a preemptive strike. It wasn't like Donald Trump banned Namibians and then she reciprocated. Everything was normal. Everything was looking normal. And then she did what I call a preemptive strike. And right now, Europeans need visa to enter Namibia as much as Namibians need visa to enter Europe or America. So these are exciting developments right now in Africa. Because before now, Western countries and all these developed rich countries, they get away with a lot of things from African leaders. But recently, we are beginning to see some kind of reciprocity from African leaders. Let me give you one example of what happened between Ghana and Israel. I think it was last month. I reported it on this channel. It involves some Ghanaian nationals. Like they traveled to Israel for an official visit. So at the airport in Israel, these Ghanaians were detained. Like, the reasons they are using to detain them is it's not something that is supposed to lead to holding them for hours in the airport. And these are parliamentarians. So they held them at the airport for hours. They were questioning them like they committed a crime or something. But they didn't commit any crime. There was no reason for such embarrassment at the airport. But they were unnecessarily questioned and delayed. So the government of Ghana decided to reciprocate against Israel. And what happened? Every Israeli national that was entering Ghana that period was putting back on the next available flight back to Israel. The government of John Mahama decided that he cannot allow Ghanaians suffer such humiliation in Israel, where Israeli citizens are free to enter Ghana without getting equal reciprocity of what Ghanaians saw in Israel. That is not the only example of the reciprocity that is happening right now in Africa. Let me also remind you the example of what is happening between Senegal and France. Now, under Macky Sall, Senegal and France, they are very like, Senegal was almost like an extension of France in Africa. So, this reciprocity involved an extradition treaty between Senegal and France. Now, whenever France is requesting an extradition from Senegal, like French nationals that are in Senegal that the French government wants back into their country to face their legal cases in France, Senegal will cooperate and follow the due process and send them to France almost immediately. But now, Senegal was requesting the extradition of a media mogul from France. Now, France is trying to strong-arm Senegal to delay the process indefinitely. But the government of Diomaye Faye and Ousmane Sonko decided that this is not how things are supposed to be between two sovereign countries. Like, you request for extradition and hand you over your own citizen. Now you're trying to use bureaucracy to delay this whole thing indefinitely. So the government of Senegal decided that they are going to suspend the extradition treaty they have with France. And until France cooperates, they will no longer cooperate with France to honor that extradition treaty. So these are the kind of things that is alien to African leaders. Before now, they get away with a lot of things. They can say everything they want to say about Africa. They can ban Africans. They can discriminate against Africans. And African leaders, they will keep quiet. They won't do anything to fight back. Now, it is not only the AES countries that were affected by this visa ban from Donald Trump, this latest ban or partial restriction. A lot of other countries were also included. For example, my own country, Nigeria. So right now, Nigeria is partially restricted. Nigerians, they are partially restricted from entering the United States. And how did Nigeria respond to the partial restriction? The foreign minister of Nigeria said something along the lines of, if we reciprocate against the United States, it is Nigerians that will lose more than the US will lose. So they don't have what it takes to fight back against the US, like we are seeing in the Alliance of Sahel States. So they can use every grammar in the dictionary to justify why they cannot do anything about the visa, about partially banning Nigerians from entering the United States. They can hide behind any diplomatic language. But the facts are facts. Nigeria has done nothing to actually correct this blanket, or should I say, unilateral decision to restrict Nigerians from entering the United States. But look at what is happening in the Alliance of Sahel States. Look at what is happening in Namibia. And I even have to include Chad. At least they tried, even if it is watered down later on. This is how you reclaim sovereignty. This is how you stamp your independence as a sovereign country. When these powerful countries bully you, you might not be as strong as they are, but as a sovereign country, you have the right to say no. You have the right to fight back. That's exactly what we are seeing in the AES. It's exciting to see African leaders reciprocate against powerful countries in matters like this. Now you may be wondering, what will the US lose by being banned from entering the AES or from Namibia or from any country that decide to follow this example. Let me ask you one question. Just imagine that during the slave trade or during colonialism, that there was something called sovereignty in Africa. And African countries banned Europeans from stepping their foot into Africa. Do you think the slave trade will succeed? Do you think the colonialism and the scramble for Africa will succeed? It will not succeed. Do you think that the resource extraction that is currently going on in Africa will happen if they were barred from entering Africa? As much as we like going to their countries, they also like coming to our country. In Africa, we go there for education, tourism, or immigration, basically. And they come to Africa for resource extraction. They come to Africa to make deals. They come to Africa for even tourism. So it is not like it's not going to affect them. It is going to affect them as much as it is going to affect us if we all decide to retaliate against this type of discrimination. And it is a good thing to see the Alliance of Sahel States setting this type of example in Africa. And I hope that other countries that were affected by this visa ban will find a way to either reverse it or fight back, reimpose that ban. They want something from Africa, they will always come to Africa. Don't think that we don't have beautiful cities, or we don't have good weather, or we don't have what they have, so there is no incentive for them to come to Africa. Trust me, there's a lot of incentive for them to come to Africa. They will come to Africa because of our gold. They will come to Africa for our own uranium. They will come for our petroleum. They will come for our natural gas. They will come for sports. They will come for tourism. They will come for a lot of things. So don't think for a second that US citizens have no business coming to Mali or Burkina Faso. They have a lot of reasons to come. So reciprocity should be the standard for every African country right now. If African countries start reciprocating all the nonsense or all the discrimination that we have to endure as black people, I believe whenever they come up with their discriminatory policies, they will have to think twice about it. Exactly the same reason why they have to reverse the $10,000 bond that was imposed on Mali back in October 2025. So Mali reciprocated and they cancelled it. So these are the kind of things that will happen or should happen should African countries start reasserting their own sovereignty. Now, what do you think about this latest development? Are you excited about this? Are you excited that African countries are beginning to fight back against this type of visa bans, against this type of restrictions? Because you cannot say freedom of movement is a fundamental human right, and at the same time, you are banning Africans from exercising that same freedom of movement. Tell us what you think in the comment section. And if you want to continue to see my content, maybe consider to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of my episode whenever it drops. I am still your host, Ezekiel Enejeta, and I will see you in the next one. It's a bye-bye for now.